The moment you stop contacting her, everything changes, not in the noise of words, but in the quiet storm that follows. She may smile online, post like nothing's wrong, even laugh louder than before, but behind the mask, something begins to crumble. Because silence has a way of haunting the mind. It turns certainty into doubt, and doubt into obsession. Most men think silence makes them disappear. The truth? Silence doesn't erase you, it amplifies you. It forces her to wonder, did he move on? Did I push him too far? Or has he finally become the man I can't control? That's the paradox. Your absence says what your presence never could. This isn't about games, it's about understanding human nature. The moment when detachment becomes power and your restraint speaks louder than desire. Stay focused, because in the next few minutes you'll learn what truly happens when you go silent and how to hold your frame like a stoic man, calm, untouchable, unforgettable. If this message already hit somewhere deep, start this journey now. Like and subscribe to Stoic Silence, the brotherhood where men rebuild in silence, not in noise. Drop a 1 if you've ever used silence to reclaim your power. Drop a 2 if you're ready to master it now. I read every comment. Your words sharpen the brotherhood. And stay until the end, because what happens next is the part that changes everything. 1. Attention, the hook. There's a particular kind of quiet that arrives when you stop reaching out. It doesn't slam the door, it slips in like dusk, soft and unannounced. At first, it feels like nothing, just the absence of a message, a call, a familiar routine that used to bookend your mornings and your nights. But give it a moment. In that stillness, something begins to move. Not only in her, but in you. Because silence doesn't merely remove noise, it reveals truth. And truth, when it appears, changes the way you see everything. You'll notice she doesn't vanish. Not really. People don't disappear when attention does. They echo. At first it's subtle, a late-night story that feels oddly timed, a photo that mirrors a memory you both shared, a post with a caption that reads like a reply to a conversation you never had, then maybe an accidental text, a message meant for someone else that somehow lands in your phone. You know better. That's not coincidence. That's reaction. It's not randomness, it's response. Your absence has a gravity of its own, and she's starting to feel the pull. But the most important shift happens in you. Without the constant reflex to check in, you begin to notice the unspoken mechanics that ran your days. The little surge of anxiety at the thought of being forgotten. The impulse to reassure, to keep the connection alive, to prove you still matter. In the silence, those habits reveal their true size. You realize how often you were working to manage outcomes rather than to live your code. You start to hear a different voice, the one that isn't scrambling to be seen, but steady enough to let time do the speaking. That new cadence is not indifference, it's integrity. Meanwhile, the quiet is working on her. The routine she didn't know she relied on has gone missing, and the brain does what the brain does. It looks for pattern, then it looks for cause. She may keep her face composed in public, she may move through her days on schedule, but somewhere between the notifications and the lights out, the questions begin. Did I misread him? Did I push too far? Has he outgrown what we had? Silence magnifies what certainty used to numb. When words stop filling the air, meanings start to rise from the bottom. This is why silence is not passive. It is not a game, a punishment, or a trick. It's a frame. When you stop performing for reassurance, you give reality room to breathe. You remove the scaffolding of constant contact and see what stands on its own. If the bond is shallow, the quiet exposes it. If there is depth, the quiet invites it to surface. Either way, truth appears, and truth is always useful. especially to a man rebuilding after the kind of endings that mark you: divorce papers signed, keys returned, a different house, a different calendar, a different mirror in the morning. You are not who you were, and the silence helps you meet the man you're becoming. You'll see the difference in your posture, in the tone you use with yourself, in the way your attention comes back to your body, your work, your principles. You will feel the urge to send a simple, "How have you been?" and you will choose to breathe instead. You will remember that peace is more valuable than proximity, and that the man you respect is not the man who reacts fastest, but the man who remains steady when the script is begging him to fold. That steadiness doesn't make you cold, it makes you clear. And still, she won't disappear. She'll hover at the edges of your attention with small signals that test whether you're the same man she knew. A photo with a caption that prods, a song tossed into a story that used to be yours, a message at an odd hour that asks nothing but expects everything. Understand what you're seeing, the echo of your absence. The universe dislikes a vacuum. So does ego. When the predictable stream of your attention dries up, the ground that took it for granted begins to crack. That isn't cruelty, it's physics. It's human nature adjusting to a new center of gravity. And here's the real revelation the silence offers you. You no longer need to chase validation to prove you're alive. You're not waiting for a reply to confirm your worth. You are no longer leaning on contact as a measure of meaning. Instead, you are letting your discipline speak. You're choosing your mission over your reflex, your code over your craving. In a world that rewards noise, you're choosing an older language, restraint. And restraint, when it is chosen, has a sound. It doesn't shout, but it carries. It doesn't demand, but it moves people. It draws the line between presence and performance. So if the quiet feels unfamiliar, let it. If the hours stretch, fill them with the work that builds you, work that can't be undone by a delayed response or a mood that isn't yours to manage. Notice how your mind tries to bargain, to invent reasons to break the silence under the banner of just being kind. Smile at it. Kindness that betrays your center is not kindness. It's fear with better manners. The man you're becoming honors both the other person and himself by refusing to send messages he doesn't mean and refusing to ask questions he doesn't need answered. She will feel it. That new alignment. She'll sense the difference between a man who is quiet because he's counting minutes until he breaks, and a man who is quiet because he has learned to let reality speak at its own speed. The first kind of silence begs. The second kind teaches. And teaching, in this case, doesn't require a lecture. It requires a standard. This is the strange gift of the silence that follows when you stop reaching out. It gives both of you the chance to see clearly, to see what was habit and what was heart, to see what was momentum and what was meaning. And as that clarity grows, the small signals will make more sense. You won't read them as lifelines to grab or taunts to answer. You'll read them as weather, information, not instruction. You will act when it aligns with your code, and you will refrain when it doesn't. That is how men reclaim themselves, quietly, consistently, without an audience. And when you're ready to go deeper, beyond the quiet itself, into the patterns it exposes and the choices it demands, you'll understand why this opening matters. Because the silence is only the threshold. The real challenge is what it reveals next. The problem you keep trying to solve with contact, and the cost you pay every time you do. 2. Problem: the pain of letting go of control. There's a point every man reaches when silence starts to feel like loss. It's not the absence of her voice that unsettles you. It's the absence of control. You check your phone and feel the ache of invisibility, the itch to send just one more message, the need to prove that you still matter in her world. You tell yourself it's love, or closure, or kindness, but beneath all that It's fear. The fear of being forgotten, the fear of losing relevance, the fear of sitting alone with your own thoughts and realizing how much of your peace has been traded for validation. Most men fail right here, not because they are weak, but because they've been conditioned to measure worth through reaction. Years of giving, fixing, explaining, and trying to be enough have built a habit of pursuit. Maybe it started in your marriage, maybe it grew stronger after it ended. You believed contact was connection, that if you kept showing up, if you kept proving loyalty, something real would grow from it. But what actually grew was dependence, the kind that steals your balance and convinces you that silence equals rejection. Every message sent from fear whispers the same confession: I can't be alone with myself. You reach out not because she needs you, but because you need relief from uncertainty. You want to quiet the doubt that asks, what if I don't matter anymore? But here's the truth most men avoid. Peace doesn't come from constant reassurance. It comes from learning to live without it. Letting go of control isn't surrender. It's strength in disguise. It's the art of not chasing what's already running away. Because the harder you chase certainty, the faster it disappears. What you resist persists. What you release reveals. When you stop trying to control her perception, you begin to master your own presence. And that's where Stoicism begins. Not in pretending you don't care, but in understanding that caring too much about what you can't control destroys the calm that makes you powerful. You've spent years trying to be heard. But silence doesn't mean you're ignored. It means the conversation has shifted inward. It's your turn to listen, to yourself, to the thoughts that surface when the noise fades, to the patterns that repeat in every failed relationship, to the ways you keep trying to fix what should have been left alone. Mastering silence isn't about punishment. It's about healing the part of you that equates noise with worth. The man who learns to sit with uncertainty without breaking discovers something rare: clarity. He no longer texts to test his importance. He no longer explains to calm his anxiety. He no longer mistakes reaction for connection. He learns to let the storm pass without needing to prove he can control the weather. That's not indifference. That's evolution. You can't master life if you can't master silence. And mastering silence means mastering yourself, your impulses, your fears, your ego. It means realizing that not everything missing needs to be replaced, and not every pause is a threat. Sometimes the space between messages is the space where you rebuild your backbone. The pain of letting go of control is real, but it's temporary. What replaces it is something far more lasting: respect, not from her, but from yourself. Because when you stop chasing what's outside your influence, you begin to command what's within it, and once you learn to hold that frame, silence no longer feels like loss. It feels like freedom, and that's where the real shift begins. The moment the silence that once scared you starts to shape you. Because it's in that stillness where the transformation truly starts, and where the next revelation unfolds. 3. Setup. The rhythm she relied on. Your attention was never just communication, it was rhythm. The steady background music she didn't realize she'd grown dependent on. The morning text, the shared joke, the quiet good night. They anchored her days without her noticing. Then one day the music stopped. At first she shrugged it off. You're busy, she tells herself. But by day 3, curiosity stirs. By day 7, the silence is thunder. And in that thunder, reflection begins. That's when your silence becomes power, not by manipulation, but by breaking her illusion of control. 4. Conflict, the ego shock. Here's what most men never understand. When you stop contacting her, it's not just her heart that reacts, it's her ego. Your attention has always been a quiet form of validation, a steady currency that told her, I still matter. Every text, every call, every small gesture was proof of relevance, but the moment you withdraw that currency, the balance shifts. She feels the deficit. She may not admit it, but the absence hits deeper than words ever could. At first, she performs control. You'll see the highlight reels, the smiling photos, the sudden social outings, the louder laughter in public. It's not confidence, it's compensation. She's trying to prove to herself and to the world that your silence means nothing. But behind the performance, her mind won't quiet down. Why isn't he watching? Why isn't he chasing? Why does his silence feel heavier than my words? That internal questioning is the sound of her ego cracking. You flipped the dynamic without saying a single word. When you were always available, she could predict the script. She knew your replies, your tone, your timing. That predictability gave her control, and control feels safe. But when you stop responding on cue, the safety vanishes. Now she's in unfamiliar territory. And the truth about human nature is this: what we can't predict, we can't ignore. Unpredictability breeds fascination. Your calm restraint creates the same magnetic tension that endless pursuit never could. But understand this clearly: silence is not manipulation, it's mastery. You're not withholding attention to play games, you're reclaiming it to restore balance. You're reminding both of you that your energy is not free, that your focus is earned through respect. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength. When you stop reacting to her noise, you become that truth in motion. You control yourself, and that control commands respect." The ego shock she feels is not punishment, it's awakening. It forces her to confront what she took for granted. It reminds her that admiration is easy, but respect must be maintained. And while her mind wrestles with the silence, you're not waiting. You're building. You're turning the energy that once chased reassurance into discipline, focus, and growth. Because the man who can stay calm in emotional chaos becomes unforgettable. And that's the paradox. The quieter you become, the louder your presence grows. The moment she realizes she can't read you is the moment she starts to respect you again. And as that respect grows, so does her curiosity, setting the stage for what happens next. 5. Agitate, the inner war she faces. What happens next is invisible, but it's where the real shift begins. Silence doesn't just echo in her mind, it divides her. One part of her wants to prove she's fine without you. The other starts to wonder if she went too far, if her pride cost her something real. This quiet conflict becomes the undercurrent of her days. She scrolls through old messages, replays your last words, and revisits the moments she brushed off. Every memory she revisits pulls her deeper into reflection, not about you, but about herself. Your silence acts as a mirror, one that doesn't flatter. It reflects her tone, her coldness, her dismissive replies. It shows her the parts of herself she tried to ignore, the impatience, the entitlement, the ego that once felt untouchable. And while you might never see this storm unfold, it's happening. Because silence has a way of turning avoidance into awareness. It doesn't accuse, it exposes. It doesn't shout, it reminds. She begins to notice how heavy her own words sound when replayed in the quiet. The jokes that felt harmless now feel distant. The arguments that once seemed justified now seem small. Without your attention cushioning her ego, she's left with the raw truth of her own behavior. And that realization stings more than any confrontation ever could. This is where silence earns its power. It doesn't demand change, it creates the space for it. It doesn't chase answers, it forces her to find them. You don't need to argue, defend, or explain. The silence will do the talking, louder, deeper, and far more effectively than words ever could. And once that inner war begins, something inside her will start to shift, not out of guilt, but out of awakening. 6. Solution: the Stoic way forward. This is the moment that separates men who talk about strength from men who live it. Because the hardest battle you'll ever fight isn't against her silence, it's against your own. You'll feel the pull to reach out, that itch to send one message, to check in, to make sure she still remembers you. But understand this: that impulse is not love. It's ego. It's the part of you still begging for validation, still chasing reassurance that you exist in someone else's mind. You're not here to prove a point to her, you're here to prove stability to yourself. This is the foundation of Stoicism, mastering the self, not the situation. Because when you master the self, every situation bends in your favor. When she pulls away, do not chase. When she tests your calm, do not react. When her silence tempts you to explain, resist the urge to fill the void. Words bring closure. Silence brings curiosity. You don't win her back through explanation. You draw her in through evolution. This is not about revenge, it's about respect. It's not about showing her what she lost. It's about rediscovering what you had forgotten about yourself. Your peace, your focus, your presence. These are not bargaining chips. They're the foundation of your worth. The moment you protect them instead of trading them, you shift from a man seeking approval to a man commanding respect. Now, this is where philosophy becomes practice, where silence becomes discipline. Because silence without purpose is avoidance, but silence with intention is transformation. This is where the Stoic path begins, not in theory, but in action. You have to anchor yourself in principles that outlast emotion, in vows that remind you who you are when the noise of doubt tries to pull you back. So here's a practice I call the respect contract. It's not for her, it's for you. Write it, sign it, read it every morning until it becomes instinct. I will not chase what withdraws from me. When someone creates distance, I will allow space to reveal truth. If the connection was real, it will withstand silence. If it fades, it was never mine to hold. I am not here to manipulate emotions. I am here to master my own. I will not explain my worth. My value doesn't need justification. My silence is my proof. I don't argue for respect. I embody it. Because a man who knows who he is doesn't need to convince anyone else. I will not break my calm for temporary comfort. The urge to reach out, to fix, to explain is the voice of fear. I will not obey fear. I will breathe through it. My emotions serve me, not the other way around. The storm outside means nothing if the ocean within me stays still. I will focus on my mission, not her reaction. Every moment I spend checking my phone for her response is a moment stolen from my progress. I will redirect that energy into my body, my craft, my goals, because growth is the loudest form of presence. The man who keeps building doesn't need to announce his worth. The results will do it for him. I will not reward indifference with attention. My attention is sacred. It belongs to my discipline, not to distraction. I will not chase where I am not valued. I will not water dead soil. My energy fuels creation, not validation. Sign it, date it, keep it visible, not as a reminder of what she did, but of what you've reclaimed. Every time you hold your silence, you reinforce that contract, not with her, but with yourself. Because silence is not absence, it's affirmation. It says, I trust my boundaries, I trust my value, I trust time to reveal truth. There will be days when you doubt it, days when the silence feels unbearable, when the memories hit harder than usual, when the phone feels heavier than the sword you're trying to keep sheathed. Those are the moments that define your discipline. The Stoics understood this centuries ago. Marcus Aurelius wrote, You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength. He didn't say peace comes from control. He said peace comes from surrendering what you can't control. Her distance, her silence, her reactions, they're not your enemies. They're mirrors reflecting where you still need mastery. Every time you resist the pull to explain, you build inner muscle. Every time you sit with uncertainty and choose calm over chaos, you reinforce your frame. This isn't punishment, it's training. Because the man who can hold his silence in love can hold his focus in life. You see, the Stoic man understands that silence is not just the absence of words, it's the presence of clarity. When you stop chasing noise, you start hearing truth. You stop asking, "What is she thinking?" and start asking, "What am I becoming?" And that question leads to something far more powerful than reconciliation. It leads to peace. So the next time you feel the urge to reach out, to check if she still cares, remind yourself, this is not about her anymore. It's about you returning to your own gravity. You've spent years orbiting around someone else's validation. Now it's time to become the center of your own universe. The world doesn't respect men who lose themselves trying to be understood. It respects men who find themselves in silence. Every time you choose restraint over reaction, the balance shifts back in your favor. Every time you walk away with calm instead of chaos, you evolve from emotional dependence to emotional mastery. That's the Stoic way forward, not loud, not dramatic, but powerful in its stillness. Because the more you master your inner world, the less the outer world can shake you. So take a deep breath, let the silence stretch, let her wonder, let the uncertainty work for you, not against you. And while she's replaying the past, you'll be rebuilding your future, not out of spite, but out of strength. Because in the end, you don't attract peace by demanding it. You attract it by becoming it. And that's the true Stoic victory, not in making her miss you, but in becoming the kind of man whose presence is missed by anyone who loses him. So hold the line, guard your silence, live your code. Because the world may test you, women may test you, life may test you, but a man who can stand still in the noise will always be remembered for his calm. That's the essence of the Stoic path. Mastery over reaction, peace over validation, silence over chaos. And when you finally embody that truth, you won't need to speak to command respect. You'll already have it. Seventh resolution, the rebirth of power. There comes a moment after the silence stretches long enough when something inside you shifts. It's quiet, subtle, but unmistakable. You realize that the power you once tried to earn from her approval was always yours to begin with, that the peace you chased through connection only truly exists in separation, that the man you were before, the one who texted, explained, and tried to prove his worth, was never weak, just unaware. He hadn't yet discovered the kind of strength that only solitude can teach. When you stop contacting her, two transformations happen, one in her and one in you. In her, silence exposes dependence. In you, it reveals discipline. She begins to feel the tension that absence creates. You begin to find the calm that space provides. It's the same silence, but it hits you both differently. For her, it's confusion. For you, it's clarity. She starts to question what she lost. You start to remember what you forgot, your focus, your purpose, your inner gravity. The more you hold your silence, the more you notice that peace doesn't come from fixing others. It comes from mastering yourself. That realization is the rebirth of power, because once you stop trying to control what's outside of you, everything inside of you falls back into order. At first, the silence feels like loss, but in time, it becomes liberation. You start sleeping better. You stop overthinking. You start moving with purpose again, hitting the gym, rebuilding your routines, reclaiming your mornings. You begin to see that strength isn't loud. It doesn't announce itself. It moves quietly, in steady discipline, in actions that need no validation. This is where the Stoic man is born, not through theory, but through transformation. You've been through the fire, you've sat in the quiet, you've faced the mirror of your own mind, and instead of collapsing under it, you've grown stronger because of it. The man who emerges from that silence is not the same man who entered it. He's more patient, more grounded, more dangerous in his calm, because now he doesn't react to every wave. He understands that storms are temporary, but self-control is forever. There will come a day, maybe sooner than you think, when she reaches out. It may come through a message, a memory, or a coincidental encounter. She'll test the waters to see if the old version of you still lives there. The man who couldn't sit still in uncertainty, who needed to explain, who sought reassurance. But you're not that man anymore. You've seen too much. You've learned what peace costs, and you've already paid it. When that moment comes, don't react from ego. Respond from strength. Remember, this is not about proving who was right or wrong. It's about proving to yourself that your emotions serve you, not the other way around. You don't need to ignore her. You don't need to chase her. You simply need to stay unmoved. Because when you've built your peace on discipline, no conversation can shake it. Marcus Aurelius once said, "Waste no more time arguing what a good man should be. Be one." That line isn't philosophy, it's instruction. You're not here to debate your worth. You're here to live it. The silence you held wasn't punishment. It was preparation. It taught you to value your attention, your time, your presence. It taught you that your energy is sacred and that giving it carelessly is the fastest way to lose yourself. Now every choice you make carries that awareness. You don't chase, you don't beg, you don't explain. You move with calm certainty because you've learned that respect can't be demanded. It's commanded through consistency. You've become the kind of man who no longer asks, "Will she come back?" Instead, you ask, "Am I still walking in my purpose?" That's the difference between a man who chases validation and a man who commands respect. This is what Stoicism in modern life looks like, not indifference but mastery. It's understanding that silence isn't emptiness, it's evidence. Evidence that you've reclaimed control over the one thing that truly matters, yourself. You've turned what used to be pain into presence and what used to be chaos into clarity. You've learned that your emotions are not enemies, they're tools, and like any skilled craftsman, you now know how to use them without being used by them. Think of it this way. Before, your attention was like an open faucet. Anyone could turn it on. Now it's guarded by a gate only discipline can open. That doesn't make you cold, it makes you wise. Because a man who gives his energy to everyone will eventually have nothing left for himself. But a man who protects his peace becomes magnetic. His calm draws curiosity. His restraint builds respect. His silence becomes his language. There's a certain kind of power that comes from no longer needing to be understood. You stop over-explaining, over-texting, overthinking. You realize that people will see you through their own filters and that their perception doesn't change your truth. You stop living reactively. You start living intentionally. You start living like a man who knows that his worth is not up for debate. And that's when something profound happens. The world begins to respond differently to you. You carry yourself with quiet certainty. You no longer flinch when someone withdraws. You no longer panic when plans change. You're steady, and that steadiness is rare, because most people are ruled by emotion. But not you. You've learned to rule yourself. You become the calm in a chaotic room. The man who speaks less but means more. The man who doesn't rush to fill silence because he knows silence is where truth lives. That's when people, women, colleagues, even friends, start to notice. Not because you're chasing their approval, but because peace radiates presence. You've become the embodiment of control in a world addicted to reaction. And here's the secret: she'll feel it too. Maybe she won't say it, maybe she'll act indifferent, but somewhere deep down she'll sense it. The shift, the way your silence no longer waits at her door, the way your energy no longer bends to her attention, the way your calm unsettles what she thought she controlled. That's when she realizes something she never expected. You didn't disappear, you evolved. That's the quiet revenge of the Stoic man. Not bitterness, not coldness, but transformation. You didn't punish her with silence, you educated her with presence. You showed her, and yourself, that detachment isn't disinterest, it's dignity. You've turned the silence that once haunted you into the weapon that protects you. Now, when the phone buzzes and her name appears, you don't feel the old rush of emotion. You feel perspective. You can respond or not, engage or stay still. Either way, you're in control. Because control isn't about dominance, it's about direction. You've taken back the steering wheel of your life. This is where your power rebirths, not in how loudly you move, but in how calmly you stand. You've stopped trying to win her back. You're winning yourself back. And that changes everything. Because when a man reclaims his own peace, the world begins to orbit around his stability. People respect what they can't easily move. From now on, every silence you hold is a statement. I am centered. I am complete. I am no longer chasing what's not meant for me. Every choice you make from that mindset builds the unshakable version of yourself that Stoicism has always pointed toward. Marcus Aurelius taught that a man's power lies in mastering his response to the world, not in mastering the world itself. You can't control her silence, her return, or her recognition, but you can control your presence, your patience, and your path. And when you do, everything that aligns with your peace will naturally gravitate toward you. So when silence feels heavy, remember, it's not emptiness. It's evolution. It's the sound of your old self dissolving so that a new one can rise. It's not punishment, it's purification. The stillness you once feared has become the foundation of your strength. You are no longer the man waiting for a message. You are the man writing his own. You no longer live for reaction. You live for purpose. You no longer ask, "Does she see my value?" You are the value. That's what Stoic rebirth looks like. Quiet, steady, unstoppable. It doesn't shout. It doesn't chase. It doesn't explain. It simply exists. Powerful, peaceful, and untouchable. Because at the end of the day, power isn't about how loudly you move others. It's about how deeply you've mastered yourself. And once you've mastered yourself, silence is no longer something you endure. It's something you own. So the next time the silence stretches, don't fill it. Feel it. Let it remind you that peace is your new normal, discipline is your new language, and calm is your new strength. You're not running from the noise anymore. You've risen above it. That is the rebirth of power. And it began the moment you stopped trying to be heard and started becoming understood by the only person who truly matters, yourself. I'm not here to sell comfort. I'm here to hand you a playbook. Silence is not a tactic to win her back. It's a frame to win yourself back. When you stop reaching out, two truths surface. Her routine was fueled by your attention, and your routine was fueled by her reaction. Your job now is simple. Stop managing outcomes. Start mastering responses. Let space test the bond and expose your habits. If there's depth, it rises. If there's only momentum, it dies. Either way, you win, because you chose your code over your cravings. Understand this: Attention is currency. Spend it where respect circulates. Withhold it where entitlement expects it. Calm is leverage. Discipline is language. Presence, earned, not begged, is your baseline. Have you noticed these signs in your own story? The urge to check in, the shift in her behavior, the moment you realized your attention is sacred. Tell me where you are in the process and what you're committing to next. Your clarity will help someone else find theirs. Like and subscribe to Stoic Silence, then drop your thoughts or questions below so we can continue this work together. Start now, before the noise returns. Hold the line, protect your peace, and let your discipline speak for you.